Hello, welcome to Song Tripping. I'm Jim. I'm back with a little bit of a discussion about the Beach Boys Pet Sounds album. I've been seeing in the vinyl and CD community a lot of chatter, discussion of new editions of Pet Sounds coming out. And to be honest, I'm not terribly interested in those new offerings because I don't plan to get them. But there's so many other people on YouTube and elsewhere have done a bang-up job covering those new releases, and review copies are being sent out and people are talking about it, so that's fine. But I want to take this occasion to just, it really, that discussion sort of made me want to listen to what I already have. And so I want to do like a mini shootout of just mono editions of Pet Sounds. There's one exception to the mono, which I'll talk about, but I've got two vinyl copies here in the house that I want to compare, and then I have 3 CD copies. Right. It's confusing with all the re-releases of the Beach Boys work, remasterings, remixes, new stereo mix, the old mono mix. I don't know if there's new mono mixes. You know, it's complicated, but let me just get right into it. I'll just give you all my general impressions on what I'm hearing from this classic Beach Boys album. We're going to start with this one. This is more or less an original Capital Duophonic version. So it's not exactly mono and it's not really stereo. It's somewhere in between. And I'll just show you the label. I found this album at at basically like an antique shop in Wellsboro, Pennsylvania. We were up in the Endless Mountains for a vacation, and I didn't pay much for this at all. It's kind of beat up, although the condition on the vinyl is, for its age, isn't bad at all. The cover's a bit beat up, but I don't think I paid more than $5 for this. It's been a while. I can't quite remember, but I had the first edition of Pet Sounds I think was probably pressed in the 1980s. It's when interest in Pet Sounds was resurging. It had achieved cult status by that point, and I'm pretty sure we gave away that copy of Pet Sounds, vinyl copy. It had to have been the mono mix, and we gave that away when we moved. And so I always wanted a version with, you know, the original cover that was like vintage 60s. I think this is a Scranton pressing plant version of the album. Well, Duophonic is Duophonic. A lot of people, most people disparage it. It's fake stereo. It's rechannelized, phased. I don't even know all the technology that's involved, but it's pseudo stereo. So the original Pet Sounds was in mono. They never did a stereo mix until the 90s when they went digital. I'll talk about that in a second. But you know, this is still the age of mono. There were very few pop rock records coming out in stereo at that point. It was starting, but mono was still king, I think, and the mono albums were cheaper than the stereo albums. So, you know, Pet Sounds, how does it sound on the Duophonic? The Duophonics, well, first of all, the album itself, this is nice weighty vinyl, like it feels substantial, and I think that benefits the sound. And I think the Duophonic, I'm going to come up with some contrarian opinions here about different editions of Pet Sounds, so brace yourself. The first contrarian opinion is the Duophonic doesn't sound as bad as many would have you think. Is it my preferred version? No. But it is passable. I would even venture to say enjoyable. And if you want like an old 60s copy and you can't dredge up like an original mono mix, and you find a Duophonic at a cheap price, I would say, why not? Give it a shot. What do you have to lose? The other vinyl copy, and this is a much prized copy, is the one that came in a twofer in the early 70s, I think 1972. Carl and the Passions, So Tough was the new Beach Boys album, and that's disc 1. We have a gatefold cover. And disc 2 is Pet Sounds. They reissued Pet Sounds, and this was on the Beach Boys' own label, Brother Records. When they switched to Reprise, they had their own label, Brother Records, and produced some really nice sounding albums. And this version of Pet Sounds is highly regarded. Sometimes they even reissued Pet Sounds by itself as a single disc with a brown cover. I've seen that in the used shops occasionally. Apparently the prices on these vintage Carl and the Passions albums has gone up as the reputation has risen. I didn't get this that long ago, like maybe 10 years ago or no more than 15 years ago. And I didn't pay an arm and a leg for it at all. Like I'm sure it was less than 20. It probably was more like $10. I just don't remember. I don't keep track of what I pay for things usually. But I had heard that these sort of reissues, and this wasn't the only album that they reissued on Brother. They actually came back out with like Smiley Smile and Wild Honey and 2020 and Friends. I forget which albums were on. They were double albums, and I've since collected those too, and they sound really nice. But this apparently was like a new mastering job, I guess you would call it, where Carl Wilson and Brian Wilson took the tapes and made them more how they wanted it to sound. So I don't know if it's a remix or a remaster. Again, other videos can inform you better than I can. I just mention it because people say this is a good one. This is maybe the best vintage mono mix you can get of Pet Sounds. And it's the only other mono mix on vinyl that I have, and we won't even count the Duophonic, I guess. So this is the only mono mix I have, and I really like it. So that's, sorry for burying the lead here, but I thought this was really, really nice. Aside from some record wear, where, like, especially on like the run into the first track, it's, you hear some wear. But like, canceling out wear and tear, like it's a really fine sounding mix, and the album sounds really nice in mono. So those are the two vinyl contestants in this shootout, and clearly I prefer the Carl and the Passions version to the Duophonic, which isn't even really mono. And now let's talk about CDs. This gets complicated, and I'll try to be quick. This, I don't have this in the original jewel case for some reason, but I have the booklet, and here's the label. This is Pet Sounds with a couple extra bonus tracks in mono, unreleased backgrounds, Hang On To Rico, and Trombone Dixie. And I think this came out in 1990. It's got some nice liner notes, and that's about the best thing I can say about it. This was back in the era when Brian Wilson was being sort of supervised by Dr. Landy, Eugene Landy, and he was like sort of the executive supervisor on this reissue and mastering. And I have to say that this one doesn't sound that good. Like it was my least favorite edition. I even prefer the Duophonic on vinyl to this one. It sounds murky, muddy. A lot of the knock on Pet Sounds is, it's never going to be like a pristine sounding album just sonically because of the way it was recorded. And I don't think this mastering sheds it in the best light. Like it's just kind of muddy, murky, not finely detailed, and kind of disappointment. And the only reason I'm going to keep it for the time being is it does have a nice booklet with some nice liner notes and photos and bonus tracks. Then you've got this, which is a box set I bought not long after it came out in the mid to late 90s. I think this was 1996. And this is it's really a 3-disc set plus a bonus disc. Here is the bonus disc, a reissued mono mix. So basically, and I'm not going to talk about discs 1, 2, and 3 because this is the first time you got a stereo mix of the album. So you have a stereo mix on disc 1 with some extra session tracks, and then disc 2 is more session tracks. Disc 3 is a stack of vocals, so you get like a cappella versions of all the tracks and then alternate versions on that. So you've really like a lot of kitchen sink material here, but then they threw in the bonus disc in a nice mini LP sleeve with a nice, it's a decent label. And this is, according to the notes, the Pet Sounds album, the original mono mix, remastered in 1996, and it's just the album, no extra bonus tracks. So just to distinguish them, this was kind of like the Dr. Landy era, 1990, with about 2 or 3 bonus tracks. This is just the original mono mix, and it's remastered, and it's just the album. I like this one a lot. More on that in a second. And then the last version of Pet Sounds that I have on physical media is the Analogue Productions Super Audio CD, which includes both the stereo mix and the mono right after it. So both versions are on one disc. And no bonus tracks, just a stereo and mono version. Hybrid SACD format. Released by Analogue Productions and mastered by Kevin Gray at Coherent Audio. I got this just a few years ago, the most recent addition to my Pet Sounds collection. And I have to say, and I'm not comparing stereo versions here at all. And I listened to only the mono version. And I should have mentioned this up front, but I tested these on my Marantz CD60, feeding into the Marantz Model 50 stereo amp. And I listened on my Sony headphones, over-the-ear headphones. So this was a pure headphone listening test. I didn't listen through speakers. And I didn't listen to the SACD layer for this time out. The Marantz CD60 doesn't play SACD. This Oppo CD, which you can't see above me, does have an SACD player built in. But so we're just talking, CD to CD comparisons. I was kind of unimpressed by the mono, I'm just talking mono now, on the mono CD layer on this. It just feels a little bit too average, not sparkling, not dynamic, kind of very neutral. I did find that you have to crank the volume to get more life out of the CD, and maybe that's all that matters, but you really have to pump the volume up to kind of get satisfying sound, which then leads me back to the winner of my shootout, and that is from the Pet Sounds Sessions box set. The original mono mix, remastered in 1996. This far and away was my favorite mono version on CD. On CD, I should qualify it. Okay, this is worth searching out. Now, you'll have to do your research as to whether they sold this standalone. I get so confused with all the Beach Boy reissues. I am not an expert, but that's a research angle to figure out if this edition that came with the Pet Sounds Sessions box set was was like reissued standalone if you were just looking for the mono. But what did I like about this version? Real nice and bright, lots of clarity, full dynamic range, so much more presence than I was hearing on the Analogue Productions version. It just popped more in my ears. Like it just had much more presence and definition, and it wasn't harsh. It was very well balanced. This version is also balanced, but this just was balanced plus like enhanced. It felt like the music came to life a lot more. And then again, the 1990 isn't even worth talking about. It's not that good at all. So that then boils down to a CD versus vinyl shootout. Which do I prefer? Was it the Carl and the Passions version of Pet Sounds on vinyl, or this mini LP version? And I'm going to give the nod to the vinyl on this one. This was, you do hear differences, I think, in the mix. Because remember, this is the original mono mix versus the somehow redone mix or mastering job that they did in 1972 when they went with the Carl and Passions So Tough twofer. And I like what they did here. Very nicely rounded sound, warm, full-bodied, like a fine wine. And it was involving. I think that's the one word I would use. This was a very involving listen. This was too. This was the best of the digital versions. And, you know, I'm glad I have both of these versions. I'm glad I have the original mono mix remastered on here. And I'm really happy that I got this Carl and the Passions version. This one's worth hunting down. See if you can find a clean copy of it. And then that leads us to the new like reissues that are coming out. So apparently this One Step vinyl, I'm sure it's Super Quiet vinyl, is they found a tape that seems to be, I'm going to guess it's a pristine copy of the master tape that was used for this. And they did careful comparisons of it. But if you want to hear this mix in new vinyl based on that tape they found, that's what you're getting here. But honestly, this leads me to a question. Okay, they found this tape to make this like super expensive 2026 edition. Does it stand to reason that the tape might have degraded over 50, 60 years, however long it's been? 60 years, I guess. You know, if I could find a clean copy of this, I would probably rather go for the one that was pressed in 1972. But I haven't heard that new version. It might sound incredible. And if money is no issue, like, you know, that's your choice. But I wonder aloud, you know, how has the tape held up after all those years? Is it truly the original master tape, or is it like one generation down from that? I don't know exactly. I'm not going to buy it, so I'm not even like researching it carefully. I'm just saying, based on what I have in my collection, which is by no means an exhaustive list of all the versions of Pet Sounds that are out there, my conclusions: stay away from the 1990 mono CD. It's not really worth the time of day. That 1996 Pet Sound Sessions mini LP Pet Sounds is great. Like that really is nice. I think that's worth having. The Carl and the Passions Pet Sounds edition is great. Really worth having. It's nice. The Duophonic vinyl isn't as bad as people say it is. Okay, and then lastly, I'll just mention like some observations about streaming on Tidal. I think there's at least 4 different versions of Pet Sounds in mono on Tidal that you can compare. And I'm not even sure, sometimes you can't trust the credits or the credits are incomplete, so it's hard to know what you're listening to. But they have a 50th anniversary mono edition. So I guess that came out in 2016. And I listened to that in my AirPods through the iPhone. And I really liked it. And I'm not sure if that, like, which mono mix that was based on. But if you're streaming, that might be my favorite one that's on there. They might have, and I didn't listen to all the versions on Tidal today. If they have this 1996 version, that's one to look for streaming as well. But again, it's like a research project with Beach Boys reissues. They just keep on going for the cash grabs, don't they? And but you know, long story short, this is an incredible album. It's the music that matters. And if you've never listened to Pet Sounds, like, do yourself a favor, treat yourself to it. Maybe another day I'll go back and we'll look at the stereo versions and compare those. I really do like it in stereo as well. I probably prefer it in mono, but I'm not gonna, like, don't hold me to that at this point. Anyway, Beach Boys Pet Sounds, just my 2 cents worth on what I'm hearing through the headphones and the Marantz gear. I really do approve of this Carlin's Passions version, this double album. And this is really an unsung hero, this Pet Sound Sessions box cassette mini LP version. I could really nice, really nice. I think this is like an underdog too. Let me know your thoughts. What's your favorite version of Pet Sounds in mono? We're just talking mono today, and I'd love to hear your thoughts, comments, and questions. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.